Good morning, Laguna Woods. Well, thank you for tuning back to this inspirational week that we're watching a friend of mine's testimony. His name is Greg Outlaw. And Greg, as you saw yesterday's show, was living a messed up life. He totaled 13 cars. Not only did he break every bone, he also had 2,000 stitches in his body, but he was still alive. Now, by then, now he was addicted to uh, a lot of different drugs and cocaine and heroin. Let me give a verse for today, because in our segment that we're going to watch today, you are going to hear just an amazing story of forgiveness. It's even a little aside to his overall testimony, but I know it built into his life. But in Colossians chapter 3, verse 13, it says, "Forgive as the Lord has forgiven you." That's the lesson I want to get out of this particular segment that we're going to watch today. Well, Greg said that his life, God couldn't get through to his stubborn head. Let's continue his story right now.
I've broken like every bone in my body except my hard head, and I still couldn't get it. I still couldn't learn. I just kept, I'm like, dude, cool. I ended up in the hospital. Hey, look, morphine, sweet. This rocks, man. And then I get out, I get more pills. Vicodin, yeah, this is good. I got in my car and I'm doing 110 miles an hour down a road with no lights on. And for some reason I thought it would be cool to race. Yeah, I was drunk, I was on drugs and everything else. And all of a sudden it's getting ready to go around the bend, and I just keep going off straight. And then I hit tree after tree after tree, and finally I hit an oak tree. I was just messed up. I was pinned, I was bleeding all here. They actually had to push back in my intestines. I had internal bleeding. I almost died. I bruised my heart. I smashed my leg. I mean, take a look at this. This is just horrible. Look at this. I smashed my leg when I hit the tree. It actually just crushed it like this. I have one bone in my leg by the time they put it together. And I'm getting just tons of free drugs. My girlfriend at the time was going and buying me, big, huge half gallons of Crown Royal. And so I'm drinking and doing drugs. And so even though the pain was bad, it wasn't like unbearable, because, I was totally medicated. At that time I had an old MG that I had redone, a nice convertible, and I really dug it. I left this bar called the Wicked Witch in South Carolina. I'm like, dude, that's like suitable. Because that's what you felt like when you left that place. I had forgotten my keys, and so I'd hot-wired my car. And the little wire had fallen off when I was driving down the road. And so I'm looking on the ground because my car starts cutting off and decelerating, and I look down for a second, and the next thing I know, I see headlights right in front of me, and I swerve onto the oncoming lane, and I hit this BMW head on. I can actually remember that event because I was looking around, and there were like people on the side of the street just looking and staring. I couldn't hear anything. I thought maybe I was dead or something. It was just whispers of, and they were moving like in slow motion, pointing at me. And I just felt blood oozing down from my head and everywhere else. And the next thing I know, I woke up in the hospital. And I found out what happened. I had hit actually a Nigerian soccer player. He's a professional soccer player. I hit him head on in his BMW, and I ruined his life. He had to quit playing soccer for the rest of his life. His name was Christian, and Christian happened to be a Christian. And I know that it had to take everything in his heart to wheel into my room and to see how I was. I was the one that ruined his career, and yet he wasn't angry with me. He wasn't mad at me. Christian was Jesus in the flesh that day. And he forgave me that day. He forgave me. And you would think after an experience like that it would change something in my life. But it didn't. I got better. I got out of the hospital and I forgot about Christian. I still didn't get it. I still just ignored it. I needed to forgive my dad. I needed to forgive the church. I needed to go back, and deal with that stuff in my life. But I wasn't ready to yet. At heart, I was a hedonist. But yet I was a smart enough hedonist to know I needed to make a lot of money to support my habits. The only way to really make your money was to own your own company. So I started working with this company thinking, well, here's something I can do. And I jumped into computers, and this was right when the PC was getting big and Windows was coming out. I know, dude, this is like dating me, I'm old. So this is ancient stuff. But I was working with my dad, and I said, you got to go PC, this big iron stuff. This is dinosaur stuff, man. This is yesterday. Let me come and let me reinvent your company. The only way we could connect was business. There was no love, there was no emotion behind it, because I think deep down inside I was always striving to please him and to have him be proud of me. I was working with Candy, actually, who was kind of my assistant in sales, and she helped and did a lot of stuff at the company. And Candy ends up becoming my wife, and she's still my wife today. Through that period of time, we ended up falling in love. And so Candy and I ended up starting a business, and actually we started a few businesses, and we made lots of money and lost lots of money. And each time that we would make it, we thought things were great. We would just spend it all on drugs and alcohol. We ended up spending a settlement that she got for $60,000, and I think we spent all of that on drugs and alcohol. And at some point in time, I would just black out. And whenever I blacked out, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but when I blacked out, I would beat my wife. I don't remember ever physically hitting her, but I saw the after effects the next day. And I tell you, it just ripped my heart out. But I wouldn't stop drinking. I wouldn't stop doing drugs. I couldn't, because if I did, I would have to face all that in the past. I wasn't willing to change.
Wasn't that something else? I don't know how many times I've seen this whole video, and it just brings tears to my eyes every time I watch it. And I don't think it's just because I know Greg and I'm anxious to tell you the end of the story, but I'm not going to tell you that till the end of the week, because his life is at the opposite extreme. But in this segment that you just saw, I know for me what touches me is the side character whose name was Christian, the Nigerian soccer player that he had a head-on collision with, and he ended his career. And yet it was this man, Christian, who came down to Greg's room at the hospital to make sure that he was okay and say that he offered him forgiveness. I don't know about you, but I don't know if I could do that. But Christian did. That's interesting that his name even was Christian. But to me, that's such a story of godly love toward Greg. And I know it made an impression on him that later in the next, we have 2 more episodes to go, that you're going to see how the Lord used that in his life to show what Christianity was really like. The other character in this story, who I know, again, personally, and Greg mentions her, but his wife, Candy. And Candy is a wonderful person too. But for her to forgive Greg for those times that he, as he said, he beat her, and she stayed with him, and she forgave him, and they have a happy marriage today, a wonderful marriage today. I know you're going to want to tune back in tomorrow to see the rest of the story. See you then.